So, before we even get into this, let me wish everybody a happy Independence Day and start this off by saying I'm gonna try something new today. Let's try something
Welcome
new.
to the King of Iron Fist Tournament 7.
We're gonna take.
Hwoarang.
Now, do I want to match him against himself, or can I just use anybody for a demonstration? That is the question. Ah, fuck it.
Jin Kazama.
Okay, so recently I've been joining a few lobbies with some friends, like doing player matches instead of quick matches and little bits of ranked, because God knows I can't handle doing rank mode. And I've noticed that quite a few of my friends all have a pretty good Hwoarang, but they all come down to asking me pretty much the same question. It all comes down to how do you do the infinite kick, that kick that just carries people across the stage. And I'm just looking at them like, really? Like you can do all this other crazy nonsense, but you can't do that infinite kick, huh? So I kind of thought, you know what? Let's do some type of breakdown for anybody looking to get into them. And in this, I'm gonna try not to contradict myself too much. I'm gonna try not to skip over subjects because there's so much to cover. I'm gonna try to break it into little bits. I think I'm gonna try to do 3 in a video. So with this one, we're gonna talk strings and consistency. We're gonna talk mastering each stance, and I think I might throw some tips in there when it comes to certain offense. But if I try to do too many different strings, like if I try to get into too much, it'll get kind of overwhelming. So I think we just need to start from the get-go. But before we do all that, if there's a pro Hwoarang that sees this, you have nothing to learn from this. This is all supposed to help newer people or people that have just gotten into him or have him down to a certain knowledge but just are lacking certain things. It's going to be what they should be practicing, how to use strings effectively, and how to look at different types of this character and how to transition fully. So I think there won't be anything for an advanced player to learn. I think it would just be going back over stuff that you pretty much already have to have down in order to be at a decent rank with him, or a higher rank, I would say. I mean, you have to be pretty decent overall to start working your way up with him. So first things first, what should I tell you? Okay, so learning this character is going to be one hell of a commitment. This is quite the overwhelming character. Like, if we take away these sample combos that are useless, and we just go right here, let's just call it good right here, at the last possible thing before they try showing you some shit combos, you're looking at 144 moves. So that's a lot of shit if you really look at it. That's a ton of shit you gotta memorize, and each one has different properties. Of course, the corkscrews, it tracks, and he has just a ton of everything. He's got the best of both worlds. He's got the best armor in the game, hands down. So many corkscrew moves. The man's got 100 combos from one launcher. I don't even think we'll talk about too many launchers in this one. And just so everybody knows, this is all winged. Like, if you see this and I skip over something or I lose track, this is all winged. Like, I thought about writing, I have a few notes in front of me, but I'm not basing this all off. I'm going in a row with things. I'm doing this just as is. So I guess what I expect you to know to be able to follow and keep up is notations, as in 1, 2, 3, and 4. So as long as you can keep up with that, I think you'll be able to hold on to this. Let me put my command history up. And then is there anything else? I don't need counter hit at the moment, I don't think. And then... okay. So first things first, when it comes to him, you're gonna have to take time. You're gonna have to take time and go through this move list eventually. Eventually, you're gonna have to know pretty much what all does what, and that right there is the ginormous commitment you're gonna be making with him. You're talking 2 different rage drives, a crazy rage art with properties, and it takes you a minute to come out with that rage art. You have to be in left flamingo or right flamingo. You can do either or. But if you just rage art like this, he has time. Like, for instance, I'll show you where's rage art. Like, if you're trying to panic rage art somebody, it normally you can't do that very often with him because of the fact, no matter what, even if it does come out on counters, it takes a minute for him to transition into that stance. So, let's talk basic strings first. I think strings is where I want to go with this. I think that'll kind of help because that's going to transition into your offense when it comes to Hwoarang. So, let's break down 3 basic strings. The way I'm looking at it is I want to take a look at 3 strings first. He has 3 basic strings, and I look at them as the most basic things you see from him, and they all will come into play at some point. So the 3 basic ones, in my opinion, when it comes to him, are these here. When you are in right foot forward, and you press forward 3, you're going to go into left flamingo. This being a high kick, so not only can that be ducked and interrupted before any of this comes out, but you're looking at, this is one of your bread and butter moves, because this allows you to go into a number of strings. And those 3 strings, starting out from this, right foot forward, is forward 3, and if I hold forward, he'll just walk towards. And so when I release, it's 3, 4, 2. So that's the very first string I want to talk about, 3, 4, 2. And most people that, let's say they're playing a newer person, as a Hwoarang player, if I see that they don't know how to handle this string, then I'm just going to loop it. There's no reason not to loop it if they don't know how to duck. And so the other one you can do from this would be down 3, 4, 2. So now you just add down to it. So instead of 3, 4, 2, it then becomes down 3, 4, 2. So those are 2 basic strings. Those are like the 2 bread and butter strings. And he also has a third one. This will be used in a lot of combos. 3, 4, 2. From right foot forward without the left flamingo, you just do 3, 4, 2. That one is extremely linear and still duckable. Now let's look at, now with those 3 strings out of the way, those are the basics. So remember, 3, 4, 2, down 3, 4, 2, and then from right foot forward, 3, 4, 2. So this all revolves around 3, 4, 2. It's just the rhythm that you input it. So whether it be here, you're doing the same 3 buttons. One has a down attached. That's the only difference. The only difference. And then this one just starts with a forward 3. So you're rotating, you're either doing forward 3 into down 3, 4, or 3, 4, 2, or 3, 4, 2. So those are the main 3 things that any brand new Hwoarang player should know. Because you can loop all 3 of these strings. If done correctly, you could start as down 3, 4, 2, and then once you're not in flamingo, you could rotate between 3, 4, 2, and then do forward 3, 3, 4, 2, and as you can see, you could still loop. And even from right foot forward, you can still get down 3, 4, 2. And sometimes it's even less predictable. So, but in the future, we'll talk about how to switch up the offense. Like, instead of doing 3, 4, 2, knowing that that's duckable, you could just do the 3, and then sometimes most people either try to sidestep or duck, then you could do something like down forward 4, once you know that's an option, and it takes you into right foot forward again. So this would transition you back to left, boom, and then you have yourself maybe a backlash set up, you know, a mid poke that could go into right flamingo, or you know, the just frame skyrocket. But that's a whole job for the future. We'll worry about that in the future. So with those three, what I want to do next is show you why a string in Hwoarang is never the greatest thing. Anytime I'm mirror matching another Hwoarang, I always want to see, is he aggressive or defensive? Is he just going to come out full blast doing a bunch of this hooey or not? And I'm teaching this because this is going to be used a lot, and you'll see this a lot. I think everybody runs into these all the time. So let's look at the holes in the game. Let's look at the holes. So let's look at down 3-4-2 as it is. If that low hits, that high is guaranteed. Not the final jab, but the low high is guaranteed. So let's look at that. Like if you actually do this sequence, down 3-4-2, that's a low, high, high. And now let's take a look at this one. So from right, let's do 3-4-2 first, and that's a mid, high, high. Now let's transition that into the forward 3, which is a high, into 3-4-2, and that's also a mid, high, high. So if you only use those, if you just continuously loop those 3 basic strings that I showed you, they all end in 2 highs. That's how, like, if you had no other offense, if that was the only thing you knew about these stances, all 3 of those all end with 2 highs. So basically, after the first hit of each one, or even the mid, or from this one, you would duck after the very first hit. So that's kind of what I do. Right at the beginning, if I see a Hwoarang player do this, right after the first hit, if they don't really know how to switch this up and get different types of damage, then why not duck? You know, why not duck? Or the best thing a panicking opponent can do, if they're struggling to duck or sidestep or sidewalk with the down 3-4 out of that, all they got to do is just a panic down jab. That's it. That's all a panicking opponent has to do. It's a panic down jab. And that's going to really throw off your offense when you're trying to get consistent. So those are the 3 most basic strings that I want to talk about, and they come into play a lot. And I haven't played him in a while, so what would I do? I'm trying to think of what am I thinking? Like what? That, for instance. So if I did a back 3 to forward 2, that's where that 3-4-2 would come in. But instead, because I know the stances, I would do 3-4, back 4. And that would give me the corkscrew for the combo. But that's all a job for the future. So when it comes to his offense, and it comes to these strings, you need to know ways to get into them. You need to know ways to transition yourself. You need to be very fluent with how you get in and out of stances. Like crouching will take you back to left. If you sidestep from right, you'll go back to left. If you backdash without actually double tapping back and you walk back, then you're automatically going to transition back to left. And if you just step forward, you'll automatically transition back to left. Now if you do forward forward or back back, you can kind of stay in this right stance, so you can kind of maneuver with it. The only thing you cannot do is crouch or sidestep. That's the only thing. You can walk around and right if you feel like you're setting up for a big backlash, or if you're setting up for some kind of forward forward 4, because one of his great launchers is back 3, and he can also do that from right, forward forward. You just hold forward and double tap 4. So they might be looking for that backlash, a lot of people that know the matchup. So then that's when, if you approach them after a peacekeeper, which is forward forward 4, most people do backlash if people tend to press buttons. So if they duck and you catch them ducking, you got yourself a nice launch. And that would be one of those times that combo, or this 3-4-2 thing, would come in handy. So let's say you hit that. So instead of that, you do 3-4, back 4. So, which each flamingo leads to an armor kick, but they both lead to different stances, for instance. So like, let's say you're in right, and you did forward 3, you transition into left flamingo, and then you do back 3. Now you did an armor kick, obviously, and it left you in right foot forward. So if you were in right flamingo and you press back 4, another armor kick, and your left foot forward, the original stance. So that's kind of how it transitioned. There's always a way to transition back into the stance. And it's getting comfortable with that that takes a lot of time and what all the moves lead to. So I feel like that's the biggest thing you got to get comfortable with. And this is one hell of a commitment with this character. It is one ginormous commitment. It took me probably about, I'd say about a good 2 years. And that's a long time if you really look at a character. Like, it took me about a year to get him all the way down to where I pretty much knew everything. Like, I knew like almost everything there was to know about him in a year. But then once I knew all that knowledge, once I had all these strings and all this offense and the switch ups, and any button that I press, I know whether it's a high, a mid, anything. I know, I know down 3-4, I know 2-4-2. I know everything that comes out is mid, high, or low, and that's a lot of moves to remember. So I know what to add where if I need a mid, high, or low, and that takes some time. But then it took me pretty much a whole another year to learn how to apply that to different character styles. Like if they have a hop kick, if they have a really good stance that crushes most of the high moves, even some mid moves. What not to start out with at fights, like because if Jen had a hop kick or Brian was here, you never want to start out with down 4-4. That type of thing. You see a lot of Hwoarangs do that at low level. And what else would be a good thing to note? All of this breaks down eventually. All of it will eventually break down even further, meaning at lower ranks, like if you were to master all this now, each string, how to get into it, how to transition, quick pokes, if you master all of that now, you'll find that it's super easy to blow through low ranks using these attacks because they don't know how to deal with them that consistently. But as you progress further and further, these strings aren't going to do much for you anymore. Like once you get into orange ranks, maybe even, it's been a while since I've been yellow ranks, so I think I think at Juggernaut, it was no longer like I could just string people to death. So you're going to have to learn how to cut some of these short and add different things to catch certain things like that. Like, for instance, one better tip I'll give you is if I were to do this and do the forward 3 and I wanted to string, now I know down 3-4 is guaranteed. So one thing I'll add after that, if I think they're gonna duck, because I can loop it. If you switch stances again, you can loop it, so you can continuously loop this without ever adding that jab. So let's say I looped it twice because he's blocking and I don't think he's gonna press buttons. I'll loop it, then as I go back for the next loop, he'll duck. So then I do 1-2 at the end of that. Down 3-4, 1-2. And if he ducks and this mid hits, oops, excuse me. As long as that mid hits, that high hits as well. So basically, you get a 4-hit guaranteed string. So it's difficult to pick people apart with Hwoarang. At higher rank, you're pretty much like just trying to get reads on where they press buttons and whatnot. So you really want them pressing buttons through them. So you're looking for a certain duck or them to try to counter it at some point. Them thinking they have a read and applying a counter where a counter doesn't belong. That's what you're looking for. And then, let's say a counter hits randomly, like you decide to completely stop and then do a forward 4, which is kind of a slow transition from left stance. This is one of my favorite start outs because it kind of leads to some good things for me if I want it to. But the thing is you have to be able to pick that up. Like if you get a random counter hit and they get a float, or if you get a float, then you need to know how to pick that up pretty consistently. And sometimes that can be really difficult if you don't have all the knowledge. So learning the character, I think, comes before anything I'm about to teach, even those strings. I think getting the moves down so that you know what's coming out for sure. Like taking a look at each stance, knowing what it's used for, what its good things are from it, what his defensive options are, and what his offensive options are from each stance, and knowing why. So, with that, now we need to talk about string consistency. I think consistency is the next one, because when you first practice strings with him, like if you've never really like played with him or done a string with him, it can be kind of difficult to hold that string. It can be kind of difficult because once you look at some of the options that take him into these, like for instance 3-3 hold forward, and you'll be in left. You'll be in left flamingo. So of course he has the whole Katarina thing, which is just a bunch of fours. That's all done by circle, four, whatever you want to call it. Just check the input. I'm going to reset it. So you could do 4-4 and hold forward, and you'll be in right flamingo. And then of course you have, the original strings, like you can go straight into one from 3-3. You can go 3-3-4. You can go 3-3-4-2. It's a little risky though. Sometimes it's kind of risky because they'll eventually start ducking. They'll think, okay, that's a lot of attacks. So, of course, now here comes the easier ways to transition. But these can be hard to keep up at first. So you have 1-2-3. 1-2-3 will take you into left. 1-2-4 will take you into right. And then of course you can do it with one jab as well, but that can be kind of difficult, especially if you're just out of range. You can get counter hit majorly for that. So you could just do 2-3, or you can do the same and do 2-4, and that'll take you dead end. That'll take you very, very quickly. So a lot of people will try to interrupt this though. As a Hwoarang player, something I always do when I get the chance at the start of a match, and this is just an opinion, some people don't, some people do, and I feel like it's good to test the waters. Sometimes I'll just stick out a double jab and then double tap back to get that one backdash worth of space to see what are they going to do. If I decide I want to run up and go into stance, I don't want to just do that and have him hop kick me or something. So sometimes when I get a chance, instead of punishing something, I'll just do that and see what their general reaction is. If his reaction is to throw out a hop kick, throw an electric, something, then I know he knows the matchup pretty well. Because when you go into this stance, you are defenseless. So you need to know how to get in and out of these stances as quick as possible. I think that's the next thing before we go into consistency. So getting in and out is a big, big thing. So with each flamingo, it's gonna pretty much correlate with 4 going to 2 and 3 going to 1 most of the time. There are occasions where it's better to do a chop, but I'll explain that in a minute. Most of the time, you can do something like this. Like you can kind of practice this if you want. If you just hold forward right now from left and do forward 4, 2, forward 3, 1, forward 2, 3, 1. You can poke like that. This is all high, so it's extremely dangerous to do. You never want to do this unless you're just styling on somebody and they have no clue how to deal with him. So, excuse me. So, let's say you're pressing buttons and you get caught. Because a lot of Hwoarang players that start out, I've noticed a lot of people get caught in a flamingo and they have no clue what to do. They start doing this and then they're like, oh shit, I'm stuck. And they're stuck in it, walking around like, okay, I kind of messed up. So the first thing is you need to figure out what flamingo you're in. So like, let's say you did down 3-4 by accident. You're like, oh, I've never seen that. Now I'm stuck. So you're in right flamingo, which means your 2 jab is going to be your fastest way out. And if you're in left flamingo, your 1 jab will be your fastest way out. And that's going to be that's pretty much the work. So left, your fastest way out is your 1 jab. Right flamingo, fastest way out is your 2 jab. Now if you press the other button, like let's say you're in left flamingo and you press 2, your 2 jab, you're going to do a chop. That's for if somebody ducks. If they were to duck this attack, if they were to duck the second hit of that, I'm trying to do that chop as fast as I possibly can. And I'll even add the 2. So That's why you would do that. Because if I caught somebody ducked right there, you want to try to get that out as quick as possible before they can get their punish out. You want to try to get that off as quick as possible. Sometimes I'll just use that as a string by itself. Down 3, 4, 1. Because then you got yourself a low, high, mid. And then bang. So that's a pretty good little string right there. Especially if they want to duck at the end. So back to where I was going. So forward 3, being left flamingo, your fastest way out, 1. And then in right, fastest way out, 2. So basically look at X and square and circle and triangle. So if you're in the X stance, it's square. If you're in the circle stance, it's triangle, the button that's right above the kick buttons. Basically, that's the way I remembered it at first. It just made it more simpler. I'm just going to try to simplify things, excuse my English today, and then try to give little tips that'll help. I don't know if it will or won't. We'll find out. Another thing that I think is good to know. Okay, for when you first start learning offense with him, and you want to take this into a real match, when you decide, hey, I'm ready, you're going to run into a lot of problems at first, especially when trying to apply all this. And when you start getting random counter hits with most of this, they're going to float off, and you're going to miss a big chance for a combo and be like, oh, okay, what was I supposed to do there? And then you'll be left in some kind of flamingo coming at them, trying to figure out what to do next. So you want to try to cancel that flamingo out as quick as possible. That's your next goal. So if you counter hit with that and didn't know you were going to, with the high hit of that, if it floated them, then they'll probably fall to the ground, and you'll have to just jab out of the stance. So if you drop it, you drop it. It is what it is for the time being. But a lot of people are going to try to interrupt a lot of things. So let's talk about 2. You need to figure out whether they're going to stand jab you or down jab you. Because if you end up doing 1, 2, forward 4, sometimes you'll jump over the jab, and then sometimes they'll hit you and float you. It all depends on when they choose to down jab. So 1, 2, that was 1, 2, forward 4. That will stop them from high jabbing you. That's an uninterruptible little combination. And then, of course, you have my favorite. I use this like it's my bread and butter. 1, 2, forward 3. It's a very good poke. It leaves him with a good amount of space, even on block. And if you were to double press back and they retaliate with a double jab or anything more, back 3 will launch them. So if I were to double back and they were to press anything, if they came at me with 1 jab, that'll catch. As long as you see it coming. That's kind of tricky to get used to, though, getting used to that hitbox of them sticking a jab out. So you got to really be ready for it, especially when you do the double back. Sometimes you can hold. So now let's talk about consistency. I'm going to try to not make this very first one too long, because there's a lot of stuff going on tomorrow and everything, and I hope everybody has a nice weekend. But this first one I'm going to try to keep short. I might add a few tips at the end. I'm not sure if I should just save it for now, or because this is already kind of a lot to take in. And I feel like I'm a little bit of everywhere because there's so much to take in on this character. So let's look at consistency real quick. When it comes to doing these strings and practicing them, you need to pay close attention to your inputs rather than watch him at first, I think. I noticed when I taught a friend of mine who played him in the past but never really got into him like as a character. He just played him for fun, never really took him seriously and learned the moves, learned everything you could do. It was just a character he played for fun. So when I taught him how to string, he always got ahead of himself. The better and better you get at stringing, the faster he's going to go. At first, you need to take this slow, because you can even delay these hits like that. 3, 4, 2. You can either do it fast, or you can kind of delay it. Everything can be delayed by like a second or 2. So the faster and faster he gets, the faster and faster you're going to want to press buttons. So if you kind of pay attention to my inputs, I'm going to do maybe about 4 to 6 strings so they're not so repetitive. So if you really look at how slow my inputs are, it's all about consistency. It's all about finding a rhythm and relaxing. Like, once you become consistent with this character, it's actually one of the most relaxing characters you can play, in my opinion. But it really does. It's very comfortable on the hands. It's not overwhelming. It can be at first, but as you take your time and just let him transition through the moves, then you'll kind of find that he's actually a lot of fun to play. His speed is based off of your rhythm. The better your rhythm is and knowing the moves and how fast they can transition or how slow they can transition, the better he's going to be, the better overall that his attacks are. So with rhythm and consistency of how you hit the buttons, the speed at which you hit the buttons, and you go at a decent pace. The faster he gets, you don't go faster as well. You stay at a good pace. When you have a really chill, it's like driving a car. As long as you stay at this speed, you're good. When you start speeding, shit goes bad, you know? So that's pretty much the way you want to look at it. And anything else about those? So yeah, just consistency becomes a major thing. I think consistency, and then you can find, that'll be the learning part. I guess we'll move into the learning part for the moment. But eventually, you'll want to start pressing other things through these strings once you get a chance, and you can find little cool attacks that you can use. Like, damn, okay, I didn't really think about that. So let's say you did 3-4-2, and now you're left and right foot forward, and you've learned enough to where you're like, okay, I know there's some moves from right foot forward, and then you start learning, okay, he's got a down back 4-4, and that can be used as a corkscrew as well. So then you take a look and you see that you can do down back 4 and hold forward, and you'll be in right flamingo. So now you can think, okay, what could I do with that? That wouldn't be the best thing to do with it, but granted, and that would be good wall carry at most points. But another thing we'll talk about in the future when I get ready for the next video is wall carry. We'll talk combos, different stage ideas. I'll give a little bit of everything for all that, but that's way down the line. So I guess before I wrap up on this very first one, I kind of want to make this one short. Before I wrap it all up, I think let's talk about the infinite kick. Let's talk about that. Since we just talked about consistency and rhythm, this is something that I just want paid attention to more of the inputs. So a good way to practice this is either do 1-2-3 and hold forward, or you can do 3-3 and hold forward. You can do down 3-4 switch stance and begin it. There's plenty of ways to begin this, or you can just do simply switch to right foot forward and then do the forward 3 and hold forward until you're ready. The reason I'm saying hold forward is get yourself ready. When you're first practicing this, begin getting yourself ready. Don't worry about the second you can start it. Like, every one of these has a very split second you can start it. You can go into it right away if you're comfortable with it, but I'd wait to do that until you have this down. So here's where consistency and rhythm comes into play. The way I look at this attack is, like, what my fingers are doing is I'm alternating between forward and 3, forward and 3, forward and 3, forward and 3. It's almost like you're banging on a drum like Donkey Kong, and you take your left hand and smack the drum, and then as you lift your left hand, you smack with your right hand, and then lift that one, go back with the left. It just goes back and forth, back and forth. I know it sounds kind of dumb, but that is the best way I can describe it if you really watch the inputs. And I kind of messed it up because I'm going too slow. I'm trying to let my inputs ride. I'm going to do it quickly just so I can So basically, I think one of the best ways to learn this is to just hold forward until you're ready. And then when you feel like you're comfortable, when you feel like you got a rhythm and you feel like you're ready in your brain's ready to do this, let go of forward, hit 3, and then hold forward again. So every time you want to press 3, you let go of forward. And you can even do it kind of slow too. Like you can let go, press 3, then hold. But if you do it too slow, he'll put his leg down. And so you just keep it at a decent rhythm. And if you do it too fast on accident, you'll get something like that. I don't even know. Oh, okay, my down button's getting stuck again. I apologize. So. I don't even know. My down button gets stuck. But there's plenty of ways to get into this, and it's actually rather simple. Once you get experience with it, it just becomes, it's pretty comfortable. It's simple. It's like playing whoever you main now. I'm sure it just feels more comfortable to you than this dude. So you just alternate pretty much, and you can even stay in flamingo just using the move sticks, or using whatever it is you use to move, whether it be the D-pad or the stick, however you play. And so you never have to fear. You just relax with it, find a rhythm, and then you just alternate. You alternate between forward and 3, and you just find out how slow you can do that. And then eventually, once you get comfortable, you find a rhythm. And it's a very simple rhythm. So you're looking at very, very, very simple rhythm. So for the last things that I think should be practiced, things that I think you should practice on a daily basis if you want to get him down, and you need to find his timing. Each set of strings and everything, it has a set speed. It has a set speed that you can do this, and if you do it too fast, especially in a combo, if you were doing that there, then if you do that too fast, like if you do it too fast, you can end up getting backlash. Like if you press, because 3-4 right here has to come out by itself, and if you do them a little bit too quick and you roll, you're going to get the armor kick. So you need to find the rhythm on each one. I think some good things to practice are, even if you don't have the character fully mastered, I think those 3 strings need to be committed to memory, like at all times, and there's a reason for it, like how to transition to them, like 1 2 3 3 4 2, and then from right foot forward 3 4 2, and then go into 4 3 down 3 4 2, and then mix them up too. Just mix them up randomly. Then throw another 3 4 2, 3 4 2, then do it again for no reason. Then do down 3 4, switch down 3 4 2, and just practice those strings until you don't even have to think about it. Until you just hop in practice mode, and while you're thinking of what to do, you're just doing those strings. They need to be just like it's nothing to you. They need to be just another set of buttons that you know exactly what they are, because it's just natural. That should be very natural to you. And then, so some things that you should practice are those strings. And then every once in a while, once you have those down, press something different. Press something different and see if you can figure out how you did it. Then go back through that string. So like if you were to do down 3 4 and then do down 4 3, and you were like, yo, what the hell did I just do? Then go back and see if you can do that again. Down 3 4, and that led me into right flamingo. And then I did down 4 3, and bang, big sweep. And then let's say you try that from right. Now you go into right flamingo and you do down 3. You get yourself another sweep. You know, so you just gotta kind of experiment. So don't be afraid to experiment as you're doing the strings. Find something new, and then if you see it, go to the move list, find out what kind of properties it has. Does it track? Is it a screw move? You know, can I use this in a combo somehow? Don't be afraid to experiment. And in the next one, I think in part 2, then we'll talk all the launchers he has. We'll talk about each launcher and whatnot, what all it can do. You know, he's got plenty of launchers. He's got all the launchers you could ever want. You know. So, when it comes to things to practice, at first, at a beginner level, I think 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 4 should be practiced like crazy. Like what I used to practice is 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 4, 2, and then do something like 4, 3, 1, 4, 4, 2, 2, 4, 1, you know, something like that. So, but we'll break it down even simpler for the first one. So just 1, 2, 3, 1 to get you out of stance. Because that can be actually a good little string. Rather than do a bunch of craziness, you can do little simple strings that'll damage people. Like, Hwoarang has a very good down forward 1, and he's got a pretty poor down forward 2. But you'd be surprised if you threw down forward 1 and then threw that out, how many people that would catch off guard. So, things I'll do is like 1, 2, 3, 1, down forward 1. And that'll catch a lot of people off guard, especially if they start ducking early. And then of course you got, this one's a little bit more complicated, but it can be just as good. So since we just did 1, 2, 3, 1, down forward 1, and then there's times that I'll do just this forward 3 and then a jab to get me out, and then I'll start spacing them. But so we'll bring this up here in a second. So then you can do 2, 4, 2, forward 3, 1. So you could do 2, 4, 2, forward 3, 1, down forward 1. So 2, 4, 2, forward 3, 1, down forward 1. So he's got a bunch of different ways you can mix up strings. Excuse me. So those are some simple things that should be practiced. Just your jab strings to see how fast you can transition. Doing stuff like 3, 3 and hold forward. 4, 4 and hold forward. You could do... Let's see, what else could be practiced? Some other things that can be practiced, I think, even at an early stage, this might not be such a bad idea. If you do down forward 3 and hold forward, he has these 2 new armor moves. Because if you do down forward 3, 4 and hold, he has this little armor kick that leads to a second kick, and you can stop at 1, or you can even cancel by holding forward. And that'll be used in a lot of things. Like, for instance, this is one of the best crouch cancel launchers. From crouched, he doesn't have a lot of launchers like most characters. Like his while standing 2 doesn't launch unless it's counter. While standing 1 is pathetic. 4, 4 is your 10 and 11 punish. I think it's just 11. 4, 4, and then 3 would be the big one. And then the only thing that you would be guaranteed out of that is a 4, 4, 3. But if you were to block something like a snake edge or duck something ridiculous like Jin's rage art, and you want a simple one that doesn't require you to crouch cancel back 3, because that's pretty advanced, then you could do, even from crouched, you can do up back 3, 3. And the best way to get to that, to pick it up, is that cancel. And you got yourself decent wall carry. So doing this cancel here can extend your combos. You can even do it out of certain back 3 combos. A good staple that's all over, like every Hwoarang player should know, is... And that's one of the easiest staple combos he has. But once you have this, you can even turn that into a combo out of that. Like, I don't even know what I would do with it right now. It's been so long since I played him. You know, so you can... which that's a little bit more advanced. I don't know. I don't even know what I'm trying to do. My mind's, because he has so many different combos that I use. I'm thinking too fast. And there, 11 hits, 79 damage. That's just on the fly off the top of my head. I'd have to sit down on and think about a combo that it doesn't really matter. Just certain things that you practice can be really good. Like this is a good thing to learn. That cancel, you don't have to do it all fast. And it doesn't matter how fast you can do it. Just being able to do it once and then be able to go into this, I think is major. And each thing helps the next thing. Each thing can help the next thing. So the fact that you do down forward 3 and hold forward, remember how when I was discussing the infinite kick, I always told you to hold forward. Like when you did 1, 2, 3, hold forward. And then when you're ready, apply it. So, because you're basically transitioning between forward and X. So when you release forward, that's when you pretty much transition into it. So, and you can do it from this as well. Since you're already holding forward, you can transition right away. And it makes for super easy wall carry. Very, very easy. And he has plenty of it, so. That's pretty, I don't know, what would I do? Like that. So, with that being said, that's a good thing to practice. So your jab strings, your original strings, your 3 basic strings. Of course, learning more moves as you go along. And for a finale, I guess I am going to add something advanced. For the very last thing, I think I'm going to try to add something a little advanced, because this can really make or break the character in very interesting situations. For certain walls, you need to be able to oh, excuse me. You need to be able to do a switch stance pickup. So it'll look something like that. It's kind of like a little jolt forward, and then you switch. You do 3 plus forward to switch and a right foot forward, and then you kind of instantly after you do that tap forward 3, and that'll pick things up. So for instance, and there's my wall because of that. So could also be a floor break. If this was a floor break map, that would have broke the floor and he'd be at the wall. I could still get a wall combo. So like when else would be a good time? I'm not even for sure. But just that can be a really good pickup move. And I screwed it up. So I think the best way to describe that, and this one's hard to learn. I feel like this one took me a while to learn, because you're going to kind of need to be able to do this when you do certain wall carries with him. Like for instance, 2, 3, 4. Now in order to get that wall combo I just did, I had to do that little thing. Like, because after I did the wall carry kicks, he was all the way here and I'm all the way out here. So I had to double forward. Like I double forward and hold, and then when I get there I'm still holding forward. I release it for like a split second, press 3 plus 4, and then I hold it again and press forward 3, like immediately. And I feel like that's the tricky one, especially once you pick it up. This kick, this high kick, should pick it up. You have to be quick enough for that high kick to basically register that it's a mid. That's kind of tricky. So I think the best way to describe this is a double forward and hold, and then when you get there you tap 3 plus 4, and then you just tap 3. Like you kind of release for not even like a second. Like I feel like I still hold it, but it's kind of all together-ish. Yeah, if you do it too fast he'll stay in right foot forward. So you need to tap, release, and then tap forward 3 together. So that's kind of a hard one to learn. And it don't even register really that I'm like letting go. So kind of a difficult thing to teach, but it's basically what that four forwards mean is I'm holding that second one and it's registering. Like when I hold and then I tap other buttons, it registers, obviously it registers that I'm holding forward every time I'm tapping 3+4. So what it looks like, what that means is I'm holding the button. So when I double tap forward to run up to the body, I hold. So I hold till I get there, and when I get there and I know I'm in the right amount of distance, then I tap 3+4 and then I tap forward 3. That is a hard one to learn. I feel like that one can be kind of tricky for most people. But you can get some majorly good combos from this, like such as, I'll give you a reason to learn it. And that would be a pretty good reason to learn it right there. 100 damage combo from mid map. That's I think that's a pretty good reason to learn. So, but I think it's a very useful tool. That's more of a useful tool than this, I think, is picking things up with this, because it can make or break. So you're looking at learning how to cancel this and learning how to pick things up with this. Oh, and even the left. Once you learn how to pick things up, those are two very, very good things to learn. Aside from those jab strings, let's see. Aside from the original strings, the jab strings, what transitions you in, and then learning those two, learning how to, what do I want to call that? I'm going to call it a switch stance pickup. So basically you just switch stance, and then you do that forward 3, because this is a bread and butter move. This move right here is really, really good. So, but I think for the very first one, I was expecting it to go longer, but I just didn't want to get into too much because my brain was kind of racing on this one. So I think for this one, I'm going to try to keep it short so we can get into everything. But at the end of the day, I do hope that helps.